Welcome to the Profitable Franchisees podcast. My name is Tracey Leak. I am your host. This podcast is all around bringing powerful strategies and stories to help you to be a more profitable franchisee. If I've got my timing right, because if you haven't worked out already, I pre-record these and then post them later, that this actual episode is coming out on Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas, whether or not you happen to be listening to it as it's come out, or if you're listening to it days, weeks, or even years later. Merry Christmas, okay? What I want to talk to you about today, because you're just with me today, is talking about setting up the year right that's about to come, okay? So it's Christmas 2024. We're about to go into a new calendar year, 2025. So what can we do to actually set ourselves up for that new year? I love that time between Christmas and New Year. Depending on where you are in the world, in Australia, we have a lot of public holidays. We have a lot of downtime, depending on what day Christmas falls. Luckily this year it's on a Wednesday, so you get some extra time for the weekend. It's just a good time to reset, to stop, take a step back and think about what things could be different. And it doesn't mean you need to take a lot of time out to think about your business, but, grabbing yourself a cup of tea or a cold beer or whatever it may be. I suggest getting outside to do this. Just pen and paper. There's power in pen to paper. And just stop and do a little bit of a self-analysis or a self-assessment of you and your business over the last year, moving into the new year. So there's a couple of things that I would suggest. Before you start doing your goals, most people sit down and go, right, I'm going to do my goals. And coming into the new year, I'm going to talk to you about in our next episode, I'm going to talk to you about how to actually make sure you achieve your goals, what you need to do to actually stay on track so that they don't become New Year's resolutions that fall over and get disappeared and never seen again, okay? But before you start setting those goals, do this little bit of self-analysis to actually think about, how you can actually set a stronger goal. Because the secret to achieving a great goal is by setting a great goal. So the first thing I would do is just look at the year in review. Look at 2024 and go, right, what worked? What didn't work? What went right? What went wrong? And oftentimes we just focus on the negative instead of thinking about the stuff that went right. What did work? And things that didn't work, why didn't it work? What went wrong? If hindsight is 20/20 vision. If you could go back and do that again, how would you do it differently to make it work well? The same as when it goes right. Why did it go right? Why did it work? What was it about that actually got it to go right? So you really want to delve a little deeper and think about it. And just because something went wrong doesn't mean it was wrong. I renovated my apartment this year. So I was doing that around September and I did a lot of the work myself, along with Kate's 17-year-old son, Josh. He came over and was my labourer and helping me. And I had an issue with the tiles on my shower floor. Okay. Yes, did actually tile my own shower. It was quite the adventure. But the first tiles I got that I chose, I actually didn't realise that when I bought them, I don't know what I was thinking, but I bought a concrete tile. So therefore, I couldn't score and snap them, okay? I would have had to use an actual saw. Now, I don't own the actual saw. I live in an apartment, so even if I hired it, where would I do it? Because it's too messy to do inside the apartment. So it was just, I don't know what I was thinking, but I made a mistake. And this became a bit of a saga because the next tiles I got also didn't work. Even though it was assured that it would all work, it didn't work. And in the end, I finally got a third set of tiles. I got up one morning and I found a location that had 6 or 7 tile shops in the vicinity. And I just went, right, I am finding my shower floor tile. Because I also had already done the fall for the original tile. So I had to get a tile in a certain size. Sorry, this is a very long story now. Sorry. But what I discovered was that when I finally got the third set of tiles, when we put them in, we went, oh my goodness, these were way better than the other 2 lots of tiles we got. So even though it was frustrating and it was a bit painful to get there, the final option was actually the best one. I wish we had started with that. They looked the best. They laid the best. They were the best tiles for the job. So I could have got stuck when things were going wrong and stopped. but instead kept persisting. Well, I had to kind of persist because I didn't have a shower, so I had to find some tiles. But sometimes that's what happens in business. Sometimes when something goes wrong, it actually leads to something better. So, first assessment, go back and look at what went right and why did it go right? Why was it successful? And then go back and say, what went wrong? Okay, what didn't work out? How could we have changed it? Did it end up being right? Is it still a problem? What could we have done to prevent that problem? Prevention is better than cure. What could we have done beforehand? Hindsight. Hindsight has 20/20 vision. Can look back and go, oh my goodness, if I'd done this, this, and this, that would have worked out better. So really start to think about what you're doing and look and say, success leaves clues. What did we do in the last year? The next thing is to stop and do a strengths and weaknesses list. Now, do that, a strengths and weaknesses on yourself as the franchisee, as the business owner, but then also do a strengths and weaknesses on your business, not on the franchise as a whole. Do it on your business. What are your strengths and weaknesses in your business? What can you work on? The thing about franchising is that every franchisee is running a similar business, not exactly the same. Because you all have maybe a slightly different demographic, you're in a different location, you're a different person. The way you run your team could be different to how another franchisee runs their team simply because of your own leadership skills. So go back and look at your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe you might even want to look at some of your key team members. Say you've got a manager in your business, look at their strengths and weaknesses. What do you see? Because this will start to identify potential opportunities for you going into 2025. How can we work on your strengths and make them better? What weaknesses do we just need to ignore and go, well, that doesn't matter anyway, okay, just let it go? Or what weaknesses do we need to do a little bit of work on to actually build to the next step? Always focus on your strengths first. How can you make your strengths even stronger? Think back, when you were in high school, if you were fantastic at art, but you were kind of borderline passing maths, what would the majority of the population get you a tutor for? Maths, right? Well, why? You're never going to be a mathematician. What happens if we got you a tutor for art? Something you were already naturally talented at or had a strength in. How could we take that and make it even better? Okay, so that's what you want to think about in business. Business is not school. How can we work on your strengths and take them to the next level? With some of your weaknesses, think about how can I outsource that or get someone else to do that? I had a client the other day who was telling me, I hate doing my payroll. And I'm like, you could just hire a bookkeeper to do your payroll. And in actual fact, I highly recommend you get a bookkeeper to do your payroll. A client of mine that I've worked with for years is First Class Accounts, group of I think they've got about 150 franchisees. It's the largest network of bookkeepers around Australia. And I go to their conferences and they'll have people like Fair Work Australia come in and talk, and the tax department and HR people coming in and talk about it. I'm like, I would never do my own payroll when you hear how potentially wrong it can go if you don't have the correct information and have someone who's actually trained to do your payroll. So you're still doing your own payroll. Go to First Class Accounts website, firstclassaccounts.com. I'm pretty sure that's it. And find a bookkeeper in your area. They're great. Okay. So if you don't love doing your payroll, outsource it. And then go, what could I do instead of that? So let's say it's taking you 2 hours every week to do your payroll. If you outsource that to someone else, how could you replace that same time with something that's a strength that can grow and build your business? So really think about that. The things that you let go of, you then replace with something that's more valuable that you're in a greater strength of. So first up, what went right and what went wrong in your business and why? And then what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Not just you, but the business and any key team members. Think about that. One of my favorite questions when I'm working with franchisees who have been going a long time, well-established businesses, I often say to them, what are the 2 or 3 things that you used to do in your business that for whatever reason you've stopped doing? Okay, they worked, but you've stopped doing them. You got busy, stopped doing it. It just fell off the wagon, right? That's the stuff you should be putting back on your list because it works for you. So start doing it again. I had a client earlier this year and I asked them that question, a franchisee, and I said, what did you used to do that really helped you to grow and build your business that for whatever reason you've stopped doing? And this particular franchisee said to me, he said, I used to run every day. I said, what, like get out on the street and run? And he goes, yeah, every morning I'd get up and go for a run. And I said, and why did that work for you? And he goes, well, it was really good thinking time. He said, yeah, of course it's great for exercise. It's great to get out and everything else. He said, but when I was just out running, he said, I just listened to music, but he said it was my own thoughts. And I just found that's when I came up with my best ideas. And I said, so why don't you just start running again? And he goes, okay. And he's like looking at me going, is this a business strategy? And I'm like, yeah, this is a business strategy. So he started running again. And amazingly, his profits started going up. And he is actually coming up with great local area marketing ideas. He was coming up with strategies for his team. He was solving problems he had in his business, just going out for a half an hour run every morning. Besides the fact he also started getting fitter and lost a bit of weight and was feeling good. But it gave him his thinking time. And I'm like, this is probably the most important work you're going to do in your business this year. And he came back to me and said, I can't believe that going for a run again was a business strategy. So think about the things you used to do that you've stopped doing. Like here, as an example, I stopped doing the podcast, okay? If you haven't heard that, go back to episode 1 of season 2. Welcome back. And I talk about why I stopped doing the podcast. It was that my mum got diagnosed with motor neuron disease and, life just got extremely complicated there for a while. And I just didn't re-pick it up. And then this year I went, hold on a second, that was really good. That really added value. And so I brought it back. Don't think that you can't pick something back up that you've dropped a while ago. That's the great thing with business. You can actually make it happen. So think about the things that you used to do, and it doesn't have to be just in the last year. It could be from ever since you started in business. I've been coaching now for 20 years, which is kind of scary and makes me feel old. But I look back at all the things I've done. I really have been sitting down doing a self-assessment of like, what did I do in my early days when I first started? Go back. If you're a long-established franchisee, go back to your first 6 months in your franchise and go, what did I do to get it up and running? Because maybe that's the strategy you need to put back into place if you want to grow your business to the next level in this next year. So really think about that. The other thing to think about is to actually stop and do an analysis on your P&L. Okay, look at where your greatest profit opportunities are, look at your expenses, look at your investments. I know this sounds weird. There's some things that will go into your P&L as an expense, but is actually an investment. So think about your marketing investment. A lot of people will call it their marketing spend. It's not actually an expense. When you're putting money into marketing, it should be bringing you more business in than what it cost. So look through your P&L and look at the things that should be a return on investment and go, did they give me a return on investment? Look for all those 1%ers, the 1%ers of things where you could be saving some money. Go back and have a look at them. Look at for your profit opportunities. What product or service was your highest revenue, but also what was your highest profit product or service? Look at your cost of goods. Look at your labor costs. Have a real analysis on your P&L. And if you're not comfortable looking at your P&L, my best solution or suggestion to you is actually turn all of your expenses into a percentage of your revenue or your turnover. So, you say, I spent $10,000 on labor and my revenue was $100,000. That means 10% of your revenue went to labor costs. So it's a really simple way of looking at it. It also means you can compare to previous years because you're then comparing apples to apples. If you're comparing dollars to dollars, it doesn't work as well because if you've done double the business, you've probably done, double in your labor costs as a dollar amount. But as a percentage, it could be exactly the same. So go and have a look at your P&L, do a bit of an analysis. Is there certain months of the year you can work on? I suggest to people that they look for the profit pockets is what I call them. Okay, so imagine you did your revenue or your profit as a line graph month on month. Okay, looking at it. And you notice that in 2 months, it dips. Instead of working on the peaks and taking them to the next level, work on the dips, because there's a certain amount of your expenses that no matter what you do, you've got to cover. Okay. So your lease doesn't change if you do more revenue in that month. You've already covered it. Oftentimes you can add more business without having to add more staff, because in those dips, they're probably not working at capacity. So you could actually do it. These are your profit potentials, okay? Because you've already covered your fixed costs. If we increase the revenue by a little bit, most of that is a gross profit amount. If you go to the peaks and look at how can I grow them, not saying that that's not what you should do, but it's one strategy, is that if you grow that again, it might mean you've got more variable costs. You might go, oh, wow, I need to hire another staff member if I go above that revenue. Whereas in your profit pocket, that potential where there's a dip, you go, oh, actually, I don't need to hire any more staff. I could do $10,000 more of business without having to hire one extra person. So that means you've got more profit potential there with that. So go back and have a look at your P&L, and then that way you are able to then set your financial goals. And remember, don't just set financial goals, actually set out a cash flow projection. So that'll keep you on track with those financial goals, because you can be profitable and still struggling in your business, because profit doesn't necessarily mean cash flow, okay? We want to have cash flow. We want money in our bank account when we need it. So have a look at your profit and your revenue goals, but also have a look at your cash flow. So do a bit of an analysis of it. The other one to think about is to look back and go, what lit you up this year? What got you really excited? Were there clients or customers you worked with that got you excited? Was there something that happened in your team? Was there a marketing strategy you did that brought a new energy to the business? Think about the things that increased the positive energy in your business, like that feel good, like where everything was working and everyone was happy. Think about you. When were you most happy? Like, oh, wow, I loved July. I just had 2 weeks off. We came back. I was firing on all cylinders, and we had a massive burst of energy and grew our business in that month. So really think about when you had those pockets or that potential where energy was high, because success leaves clues. You can recreate that. So you think the story I just said, it might have been that you had those 2 weeks off just before July. You had a certain campaign in July, or you did certain things, and that's what actually created that burst of energy that grew your business. Well, let's repeat that next year, okay? Maybe you need to test and measure that, oh, if I have just a long weekend, I come back with a new burst of energy and can grow the business to the next level. So now that becomes a business strategy. You need to have a 3-day weekend, at least once a quarter, to drive that growth. So look back and go, when did you have those energy bursts? What were the things that actually took you to that next level? Something I've looked at over the last 20 years is how much those pockets of positive energy has an impact for a business owner, okay? So, oftentimes in franchising, post-conference, franchisees come out of conference, and the ones who succeed are the ones who leave conference with an action plan. When I'm working with clients and they have conference, I send them in they have specific questions, they have certain things that they want to find out whilst they're at conference, and then they come back with an action plan, and then they implement as much as they can, as quick as they can after conference. And you'll usually see that their businesses grow. So think about that as well. What are those pockets of time that are within your franchise group that you could better utilize? So the final thing is, I suggest that you do what I would call a start, stop, change, or let go list. Okay. What are the things you need to start doing? What are the things you need to stop doing? What are the things that you need to change? So you're not stopping or starting them, you're just changing how they're done. And what are the things that you just need to let go? Sometimes we just need to let go of things and, move on and go, that didn't work for me, let it go. What are the attitudes or the thought patterns? Instead of dredging it up and going, oh, it was so hard. It was so hard. No, just let it go, okay? Start the year fresh. Hit the reset button. I can remember Kate, who's my best friend, who was my coach over 20 years ago. Kate often says, you hit the reset button, but you don't go back to zero, okay? You just reset, let go of the bad stuff, take the good stuff, and you move on. So I really highly recommend, before the 2025 starts, hit the reset button. Let go of the stuff that's not going to help or service you and move on. Okay, so finally, who are the people who are going to support you in 2025? Get your supporters around you. Is it family? Is it friends? Is it people within the franchise group? Is it peers, other franchisees? Is it someone from head office? It can be all of those things, by the way. But create your supporter list. Who are the people you're going to go to when you need support for certain things? And it doesn't mean you have one support person who does everything. Okay, you might have a support person for when you're feeling down. You have a support person who's going to cheer you on when you're succeeding. You're going to have a support person who helps you with marketing. You have a support person who helps you with your financials. Work that out so that you go in feeling like you're not alone going into business in the next year. And sometimes your support people are not even people you know. Maybe I'm your support person and you're going to keep coming back and listening to the podcast every week and get a little shot of energy to help you to grow and build in your business. You may never meet me, but maybe I can be a support person for you. So I really do hope that you put me on the list. Put me on the list. I'd love to know. Come over to my socials and tell me you put me on your list. I'd love to hear it. So really looking at it going into 2025, before you set your goals, do a little self-assessment of what's happened in the last year. What do you need to start doing, stop doing, change, or let go? Who are your supporters? What are financial goals? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And what did you do well? And what went wrong? Okay. These are the things that are going to help you to set yourself up for 2025. Grab out pen and paper and get started. Hope that helps you. I look forward to seeing you in 2025 with the next episode. And of course, always remember, if you haven't yet signed up for the Franchisee Profit Pulse newsletter that comes out fortnightly, just head over to my website, traceyleak.com, and sign up. 100% free, but an extension of the podcast to help you further. All right, guys, I'll see you in 2025.